Hello and welcome back. My name is Brian Diffie and I am pastor at First United Methodist Church in Crossett, Arkansas. I want to thank you for joining us again for this Advent study. We have been, over the past several weeks, been looking at the grand hymn of Christmas by Charles Wesley, Hark, the Herald Angels Sing. Last week we looked at the first verse. This week we're dealing with the second verse, which says this: Christ by highest heaven adorned, Christ the everlasting Lord. Late in time behold him come, offspring of the Virgin's womb. Veiled in flesh the Godhead see. Hail the incarnate deity. Pleased with us in flesh to dwell, Jesus, our Emmanuel. This second verse of Hark the Herald Angels Sing comes with three very distinct but very interconnected passages of Scripture. Isaiah chapter 7 verse 14, which tells of the young woman who is with child, of whom will be called Emmanuel upon his birth. Matthew chapter 1, verses 21 through 23, which tells of the birth of a son to Joseph and Mary. Matthew's attempt to connect these two scriptures by placing one inside of the other is what biblical scholars call intertextuality. And finally, John chapter 1, verse 14, which tells us of the Word, or the Logos, the full knowledge or mind of God, became flesh and dwells among us. What Charles Wesley did in writing this particular verse is give testimony to the divinity of Jesus. God became flesh and dwelt among us. Christ was adored in the heavens and is from everlasting to everlasting. He was and is the greatest of all beings in the heavenly realm. He is unmatched in splendor, power, or authority. He is the full knowledge of God's creative power in one complete package. He is, as Scripture tells us, King of kings and Lord of lords, who became as one of us to bless all of us. This hymn also gives attention to one of the most pivotal doctrines of the Christian faith. This doctrine begins our faith as Christians, and without it, we have no basis for anything else that we believe. That doctrine being the virgin birth. Bob George, in his book Classical Christianity, gives us a clearer understanding of just how important this doctrine is to us as followers of Jesus Christ. He writes, and I quote, "You will often hear people say, all men are created in God's image. But let's think that through. Adam was created in God's image. But Genesis chapter 5, verses 1 through 3, we read this: In the day when God created man, he made him in the likeness of God. When Adam had lived 130 years, he became the father of a son in his likeness, according to his image, and named him Seth." George continues by saying that two spiritually dead parents could not pass on what they no longer possessed themselves: spiritual life. The law of reproduction is like begets like, And ever since, all men and women have been born according to the tragic results of Adam's choice, dead spiritually. If we were to follow George's line of thinking, we would soon discover, and so would he, that the virgin birth was the only way he, meaning Jesus, could be born into this world spiritually alive. If he had been born naturally of two fallen parents, he would have inherited their state of spiritual death and their sinful nature. He had to be born alive spiritually, because only then would he have a life to lay down on behalf of the world. This is such an important part of our faith that it cannot be watered down or forgotten. Christ is the only begotten Son of God. He was the offspring of a virgin's womb, sent to live among God's people as Emmanuel, which simply means God with us. John Wesley, in his explanatory notes on the New Testament, states, He, meaning Jesus, is God incarnate and dwells by His Spirit in the hearts of His people. By doing so, He truly becomes Emmanuel. Jesus, as the hymn states, was the Godhead veiled in flesh. He was more than just a man. He was the deity. He was God incarnate, God in human flesh and dwelling among the people. In John, the first chapter, verse 14, we read that the Word became flesh and lived among us, and we have seen His glory, the glory as of a Father's only Son, full of grace and truth. Wesley states that the whole verse might be paraphrased as this: and in order to raise us to this dignity and happiness, the eternal Word, by a most amazing condescension, was made flesh, united Himself to our miserable nature with all its innocent infirmities. And He did not make a transient visit, but tabernacled among us on earth, displaying His glory in a more eminent manner than even of old in the tabernacle of Moses. In all He appeared, full of grace and truth. He was Himself most benevolent and upright, made those ample discoveries of pardon to sinners, which the Mosaic dispensation could not do, and really exhibited them most substantial blessings, whereas that was but shadow of good things to come. I believe that what Charles Wesley's intention in writing this verse, other than that of teaching theology about the divinity of Christ, was to echo the thoughts of the writer of Hebrews in saying that since then we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God. Let us hold fast to our confession. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but we have one who in every respect has been tested as we are, yet without sin. Let us therefore approach the throne of grace with boldness, so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need. My friends, this is such a wonderful word. We do not have a God that is simply high in the heavens somewhere, looking down, hoping we get everything right. We have a God that loved us enough, that saw that we needed saving, and saw that we could not save ourselves. So what did he do in that love? He became one of us, exactly like us, but without sin. And since he is without sin, he can do something about our sin. This is the story of Christmas. This is the story of Advent. And this is a story worth living into and sharing with others. May you experience God's best for you, your life, your family, as you continue to journey towards the manger and experience all that God would have to share with you this season, as well as all the days of your life. I'll see you next time, my friends. Until then, stay safe, stay well, stay blessed. Bye-bye.